welcome back to the Monday Postcast. All the flat talk is over. You'll be happy to hear we're going to address the jumps now. Great action from Cheltenham and Aintree over the weekend. Starters, what did everyone make of the old Roan Chase? Now, I absolutely adored this because I had actually backed Smad Place. Hate to after time. But I just thought it was a wonderful, wonderful race. Great to watch. So first impressions after the old Roan, Jimmy.
I thought it was fantastic. Fantastic. That's why we love jump racing, isn't it? Getting these old warriors coming back and winning when you think, they're probably past their best. And it was a terrific training performance by Alan King. I thought it was a great ride by Wayne Hutchinson. I mean, King's record speaks for itself, but I do think he's generally got much better at improving these older horses in the recent years. I mean, Smad Place, really, maybe in years past, you might have thought you wouldn't have expected much more of a King runner at the age of 10 going on 11. But, I mean, he looked as good as ever there. I mean, he hasn't really lost much pace. I mean, winning a grade 2 over 2.5 miles. His jumping's still fantastic. And I thought Wayne Hutchinson gave him a great ride. I thought he outjocked Brian Cooper at the finish. And I thought he was really at his dynamic best. And those two, King and Hutchinson, I think they're as good a partnership in jump racing in Britain as you'll find, really. They're so solid.
Yeah, I mean, Smad Place, I think he was something like £8 lower than when he was third in it last year. So it was a great performance. A lot of talk coming on to Cloudy Dream and the ride given in second. A lot of people think Brian Hughes didn't help the horse. I know he can be a bit quirky. What was your opinion on the race and Cloudy Dream, Nick? I know a lot of people are tipping him for the Bet Victor Gold Cup now, aren't they, at Cheltenham?
Yeah, I'm not sure that's completely his race. So, looking through his kind of back catalogue, he's done a lot of his running in small fields, which I think suits him. I'm not sure he's the heartiest of battlers in the finish. And put it this way, when they were coming to the last yesterday, and you had to nominate which one would fly the fence and which one would just get in close and make a small little mistake, you would have put your house on Smad, winging it. And Cloudy Dream, getting in tight, which is exactly what happened. And yeah, he ran on well close home, but never was going to get to Smad. And I don't know, there has been a bit of, criticism of Hughes flying around, but I think that's slightly unfair because I don't think he's the easiest horse to win on. I think you need to produce him at the right time. I don't think he'll sustain a run for particularly long, so he wouldn't want to be in front for a long time. And I think you just have to ride him like that, and you have to take your chances, and that's just the way the horse is. You look back through his history, there's a lot of twos there as well as a lot of ones, and the ones are come in small fields. So I don't think personally that a race like the Bet Victor, if it had a big field, would particularly suit him. I'm not sure he'd enjoy the hustle and bustle of it. So he wouldn't be top of my list for that. He's got all the talent in the world, but I think it's just going to be a job to coax it out of him. I'm not quite sure where they're going to go with him at the moment. And when he's up against a horse like Smad, and it gets tight in a finish, you're going to want to be with Smad, not Cloudy Dream.
Yeah, I said that yesterday. I said, isn't it a wonderful feeling when you've got a horse like Smad Place who, yes, you might have one absolutely tanking in behind, but he's such a public favourite, and you can bet your bottom dollar when Wayne Hutchinson throws him at that last with everything he's got, he's going to respond. I think it's...
Just going to say, fitness is an important issue as well at this time of year. And Cloudy Dream, he's a very talented young horse. I mean, he's going to have bigger goals later in the season. So you can expect some improvement from that, I would have thought.
Yeah, totally. Quick mention of a few other things that went on at Aintree. Vintage Clouds absolutely bolted up in his race, although the low sun and everything like that interfered. And then also on the blind side, won nicely as well. I believe he's 33-1 to win any sort of festival race at this stage. Anything else at Aintree catch your eye, Nick?
Yeah, the second in that race that you just mentioned, another stowaway trained by Tom George, that was 80-1 to win that race, and I thought it was coming through with a winning run. It jumped the last really well, and it was finishing really strongly. On the blind side, just too good for it in the end, but I think the first two from that race are worth putting in a tracker. And of course, there was a bit of controversy late on. I thought a very harsh demotion of Fergal O'Brien's bumper horse in the closing race. Looked like a good finish to me. Both jockeys never stopped riding. It's nip and tuck all the way. The O'Brien horse got it on the nod, but then got demoted in stewardship. I thought it was very harsh for anyone who had backed. Is it Gregola Girl?
Well, me and Jimmy had a discussion on how to pronounce this, and we went with Grayley Girl. But Postcast awarded the race. I was going to bring this up, so nice one. You did it for me, so I didn't have to remember. Jimmy, you're disagreeing with Nick a little bit on this one, aren't you?
On the photo finish, I thought it was such a tight finish. The problem is when it's that tight, if interference has been caused, and I think interference was caused to Posh Trish, it's difficult to say that therefore she wouldn't have won that race if she hadn't been bumped into. I mean, I just mentioned to you before we came in here, that isn't always the case. Sometimes, and I think there was an example a couple of weeks ago at Leicester, where a Silvestre de Souza horse that finished first past the post actually got demoted, even though to my eyes he actually came off worse, despite bumping the other horse. It's not always a case when interference is caused that the horse that causes interference actually improves its position out of it. But I thought on this particular occasion, you couldn't really say that Posh Trish came out better than Greeley Girl. I think really the right result was given in the end. It was very close, and when it's that close, I think you have to give the benefit of the doubt to the horse that was interfered with.
Okay, just a quick one then. Anything else at Aintree for you? Any eye catchers there?
Not really. I was amazed how well Vintage Clouds won, and On the Blind Side is definitely a horse to follow for the future. I thought it stuck its neck out really well, showed a good attitude. That's a Henderson horse that's going to win a few more races.
Yep, totally agree with those comments. Before we have a quick look at the Charlie Hall now, highlight of Cheltenham each for you. I'm going to kick us off cheekily and go with Slate House. I mean, he has a massive reputation. Colin Tizard's long said that he's sort of the next Finian's Oscar, bought for an awful lot of money, and I think he needs to brush up on his jumping, but the raw ability was there for all to see, and I think he's a huge, huge talent. So Slate House, an obvious one, but I think he's very, very classy. Nick, one horse or a highlight from Cheltenham?
I thought that both the handicaps on Saturday were good races. So I thought Coggery really is showing signs of getting his jumping together now. I know he made a bit of a blunder at the last, but he was good up until then. And he was so clumsy last season. I think he was the horse that put Ryan Hatch in hospital at Cheltenham early last season. And his form figures in the first part of last year were awful. It was F, B, U, F. But second in the Scottish National in the spring. Came back with a win here. He's still not badly handicapped, I don't think, when he does get it all together. And the signs are that he's gradually starting to mature and he's very much a stayer to look out for in the future. And I thought the handicap with Foxtail Hill just beating the Prezienne was obviously another fantastic race. I could see the Prezienne winning a decent race this season, possibly up to 2 miles 4. I don't know if the Bet Victor's the plan for him, but he's got a lot of ability. He's second behind York Hill at Aintree over hurdles a few seasons back. Now he's another one that's got his jumping together. I think he could win a decent race. Possibly the Bet Victor. They might have other plans for him or another horse for it, but
I think he might be going that way.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought it was brilliant to see Foxtail Hill. He was almost like Village Vic Mark II, wasn't he? Get to the front round Cheltenham and really put them all under pressure and nothing can get near you. Jimmy?
I was heartbroken Foxtail Hill won. I didn't have a penny on him. I thought his performance last year when he won at the January meeting at Cheltenham was one of the best of the season. But I just thought, that was 2.5 miles on softish ground. This was 2 miles on good ground. And I just didn't think he'd be able to get away from them. But he did. He jumped superbly. He was given a fantastic ride, and he was able to beat a really good horse, outpace a really good horse up the hill in Le Prezienne. And usually I would say these races run at Cheltenham in October, they tend to be talked up a bit too much because, a lot of bigger horses are coming out later in the season and the form doesn't really count much when the big spring festivals come about. But that race looks really good to me. I mean, they dashed a long way clear of the third horse, Sizing Platinum, who was second to Fox.
I love him. I think he's a very good horse in his own right.
And he was well clear of Poker School, who'd been well back before the race. I didn't think some of the younger horses in behind, like Cobra de Mai, Do It for the Village, I didn't think they actually ran that badly, even though the form book would suggest they were beaten a long way. So that is a race I think that you should keep in mind when it comes to March for Grand Annuals and so on. I think that's really good form.
Okay, very interesting. On that note, Darren Hughes asks, what are your trainers to follow early in the National Hunt season? This season, obviously, Nichols is off to a flying start. Nigel Twiston-Davies is always doing well, obviously, as he did at the weekend. And Harry Fry is flying too. Any particular trainer you look for at this stage in the season, Nick?
Well, Twisters would be the one, wouldn't he? I mean, he had a hat-trick at Cheltenham on Saturday. He always tends to get them going early. So he would be chief among them. Charlie Longsdon as well. for whatever reason, I don't know, but he seems to get his string out fit and firing early on as well. And it might just be a carryover from the summer, because a lot of these guys, the Dan Skeltons, the Longstons, they have horses running over the summer. So obviously they're, rather than winding down, they're still keeping going. And so they might still have an advantage at this time of the year compared to like the depths of winter, when some of the yards that are slower to come down start to come to the fore. So it's nothing groundbreaking, It's just the ones that always tend to do it. They trainers are creatures of habit, and ones that like to get the horses out early and pinch these good prizes that they do it time after time. And that's what's happening again this year. It's the same old people, really.
Okay, anything to add, Jimmy?
Yeah, well, Colin Tizard looks like he's coming back into form as well, just as he was doing last season. He really started to hit form around this time 12 months ago. David Pipe hasn't hit form yet, but he's one to remember for the November meeting. That going back through the years, a Pipe yard always fired around November time. And they're a bit quiet at the moment, but give it another month, I would expect to see their name on the winners board at Cheltenham.
Yeah, it's interesting. You talk of trainers and time of year. Obviously, when the mud gets flying, Venetia Williams' horses seem to be back, left, right and centre and all sorts. So very interesting on that. Right, we're going to move on to the Charlie Hall now. Thomas Jones asked thoughts on the Charlie Hall, as he's off to Wetherby on Saturday. So I'm very jealous of him going to Wetherby. Haven't currently got any prices on this, because I think it's just that difficult time of day when they're not available. But I do know that Black Lion, Bristol de May, Coney Green, Q Card, Definitely Red, More of That, Verlion Rouge, Village Vic and Size and Cadelka are some of the main entries. Shed some light on the Charlie Hall, Watsy. I know Q Card, he's had a racecourse gallop, and they think he's a lot better than this time last year, surprisingly, considering his advancing years. What do you reckon of his chances this time around?
He's a similar type of horse to Smad Place, isn't he? And he's been around for a long time. He'll be taking on some young pretenders. But I think the point to make, it was true of Smad, and it'll be true of Q-Card as well, that these are very much cup finals for these horses now. They're not going to be winning Gold Cups, so there's no point kind of saving them till March and bringing them along slowly. They need to try and win these races, because they're at that stage of the season where if they can get them firing, get them fit straight away, they still offer really good pots. And, Q-Card winning on Saturday will bring the house down. And I'm sure Colin Tizard will have him 100%, fitter than a butcher's dog to run in this. And I'm sure he's going to run very well. The one that did catch my eye, if he's going to it, is definitely Red, who's put in some really good performances at Wetherby already. He won the Rowland Merrick there last season by quite some margin. A real big improver. I think he improved 17 pounds over fences last season. Well fancied for the National, which didn't quite work out. But I know Brian Ellison has talked to him in terms of, having a go at the Gold Cup this season. So I think he rates him very highly. He's an 8-year-old now, so just be 9 in the new year. He's reaching his peak. He's already rated 159, which is the same as Bristol de May. And if he is still on the upgrade and he's got a few pounds still to go, then I think he could be the one who takes all the beating at the weekend.
Ah, very interesting. I mean, he was unlucky in the National, wasn't he? But maybe that was a bit of a blessing in disguise, that he didn't have a really hard race. It's not scarred him or anything there, but it wasn't his fault by any means. That he wasn't managed to complete Definitely Red, and he jumps very well as well. So you've got that on your side, I presume. Jimmy, are you with Nick?
Well, I think both Definitely Red and Black Lion would have chances, definitely. I think they finished 1-2 in a Grade 2 novice chase at Wetherby a few seasons back. So there's not much between them on form. But don't forget that they'll have, the trainers for both those two will have the Grand National very much in mind. So,
Or the Gold Cup, as Watsy says.
Possibly the Gold Cup. I think Watsy might be being a little bit optimistic about that. But certainly the Grand National. I do think Watsy makes a really interesting point about Q-Card. I mean, usually he's quite rusty in this, and we don't see him at his best. But they'll be wanting to get him winning again. Obviously, the Betfair Chase will be the big target for him, because he's just got such a good record at Haydock. But we might see him strip fitter here than we usually have in this race in the past, and it would be fantastic if he did win again. With so many doubts about the ground for horses like Coney Green, Bristol de May and so on, it can sometimes go to an outsider. It did with Irish Cavalier last year. I mean, this is a real flyer, but I'm gonna maybe just suggest Shantu Flyer, who used to be with Rebecca Curtis, is now could be having his first start here for Richard Hobson. And people might be thinking, well, who's Richard Hobson? He's actually quite an upcoming trainer. I think he doubled his tally last season from a personal best season. 22% strike rate over 46 points level stake profit. So he's an upcoming trainer. Shanty Flyer's a horse who goes well fresh and has always looked the type to do well over this sort of trip. Generally, he's been racing over a little bit shorter, over 2.5 miles. But I think he beat Village Vic first time up at Cheltenham last season. So he's got a bit of ability. If Q Card was rusty and some of the big guns didn't turn up because of the ground and so on, I could see him maybe being quite interesting at a big price.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what price he was. I love that. Big bombshell to end on with Jimmy fancying Shanty Fly in the Charlie Hall. There's your tip if you wanted one. Right, that should about do us for this week's Postcast. Don't forget to tune in on Friday's show. I know the tipping lads have been in excellent form recently, so you can't afford to miss that one. And remember, if you enjoy these Postcasts, please make sure you comment, rate and subscribe on iTunes. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.
Check out Paddy Power's new and exclusive Cash Card Plus. Available to use online, at ATMs or even down the local. Paddy Power, you beauty!